Most small business owners don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack clarity. My name is Adam Diaz, and I've spent nearly 2 decades building, selling, and advising small businesses. This platform exists for one reason: to bring clarity to chaos and insight to confusion. Only what moves your business forward. Here, we talk real strategy, real numbers, and real leadership decisions that actually make your business profitable. If you care about margin and not just the hype, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Margin. Welcome to the Adam Diaz podcast. My name is Adam Diaz, and I've got a very special guest for us today, my very own younger brother that looks like an older brother.
That's what they say, younger,
Diaz.
but I often get 5-10 years older.
5-10 years older, and hey, I'll take it. Any little bit helps. Although I'm growing out the beard a little bit right now to match some of Eric's beard energy.
Yeah, we get twins sometimes too.
Yep. So I'm super excited to have you on and to talk about this. Obviously, you and I go way back. You were just a baby when I met you.
From birth, yeah.
From birth. So now we've done lots of things together. We've done ministry together. We planted a church together. And most recently, you started a business, Pure View Window Washing. And what you started that about maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was summer of 2023. So almost 3 years. We've had about 2 full operating seasons because the start of 2023 was way more get the initial equipment, probably only service like a handful of clients that year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've kind of been along kind of a guide on the side for you this whole time.
For sure.
And what's been really cool is that I think we've both learned a lot in the last 2 years. And the big announcement is that I will officially be buying into Pure View Window Washing. And also our father, Peter Diaz, is going to be retiring from the Hanford Grind. And then he's going to be also buying in. So we're going to be 3 partners, changing the name to Peter Diaz and Sons.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
no. We are going to Pure View Exterior Cleaning rather than Pure View Window Washing.
Capture more of those services.
More services, more pressure washing and soft washing, not just windows. Of course, windows will always have a special place in our heart. But I think what's been really cool is that we have learned a lot of lessons in the last 2 or 3 years. I personally, like I said, I've been in business now I've had multiple businesses. I've sold multiple successful businesses, and I'm still learning. And this has been the first time I've really been in kind of a service-based business that's, how do I want to say this? Lower end, in terms of like a low-end service-based business, right?
Low ticket. You're going to people's houses for a couple $100 at times.
Right. And so just a ton of lessons that I've learned. And what I want to do today is, between you and me, I want to kind of talk about what the business has been like, and then some of the big lessons that we've learned that hopefully other people can take and apply to their own businesses. So before we even get going and dive into that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your history with window washing? Mm-hmm. When did you learn that? And kind of how did you get into this business?
How I got started in the business, kind of the origin of, window cleaning specifically.
Yeah.
So I started with window cleaning, let's say like 2013, 2014. Joined up with another guy. He's the one who actually showed me how to wash glass. We did a little bit of pressure washing at the time. We didn't really do everything by the book with pressure washing. I've learned a lot since then.
Yeah, I see you smiling. I think you've told me that you probably ruined some stuff back in the day, because honestly, a lot of pressure washers out there don't know what they're doing. They're using high pressure.
Yeah. Really, at this point in the business, a little bit of a tangent, we really only use high pressure to clean concrete. If we're washing siding, roofs, anything else, we're going to be soft washing it. So low pressure. Hit it with a cleaning solution, let that do the work for cleaning, then rinse it down.
And of course, high volume, right? Because we're still using the high-end equipment to get high volumes of water through, but just not at the high pressures that we think of typically when we think of pressure washing.
10 gallons a minute, 8 gallons a minute, 500 PSI. So way less than a pressure washer, even a consumer-grade pressure washer. Low PSI, but much, much higher volume of water. So anyway, started in windows there, took a long break. It was kind of a side hustle for a while in the summers as I was doing other things, exploring other careers, some ministry stuff, and then picked it back up in 2023 and kind of committed to it all the way. So bought a squeegee. I mean, at that point, I'd already gotten rid of all my gear. I bought a squeegee and a bucket, a mop, some of the basics, and went out and tried to get clients. Obviously, there were some friends and family. I still remember landing my first kind of stranger client in 2023, and we still do her house 3 times a year today. Then kind of adding the soft washing, other services, pressure washing, that's been the bigger learning curve. As time went on, I really learned that just kind of as we went.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit why you decided to be an entrepreneur. What drew you to want to be a business owner?
I think there's several things I love about business ownership that compared to some of the jobs that I've worked. The first one is, let's just go down the list in no particular order. The first one is I love that there's no limit or ceiling on how big this could become. Anything from income potential also though to just customers impacted and employees impacted. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of having a bunch of employees who can support their families, grow a career, be a part of a bigger organism that's growing. They feel like they're contributing to that in a meaningful way. And that there's just no hard ceiling on that. It just is what we make it through hard work and time. Another one, it's kind of a mixed bag because it feels like, in a sense, you get to pick your own schedule, which is awesome. And I do take liberties in that. But in another sense, you're kind of always on. You're always working. It's always in your mind. It feels like there's kind of this unlimited list of things that you can be doing at any given time that weighs on you. But I like getting to set my own hours and feel like I have ownership over, I get to take out what I put in, and there's actual reward and progress for the work that I'm doing. And then other things I might say I love about business ownership. Well, for me, I like the diversity in it too, in my roles. So there's some things I really enjoy doing in the business, some things I don't enjoy quite as much. But it's really nice to be able to do a wide spectrum of things. I get to work with people, clients. Some are better than others. But I get to work with clients, get to do a little bit of looking at numbers, get to do a little bit of sales or a lot of sales and working with people and getting to know people in the community. It's nice to have a broad spectrum of things that I'm responsible for. Probably my favorite, actually, of which is training employees, working with employees and developing them both in their work ethic or their professionalism and their skills on the job. That's probably my management is probably my favorite part of the jobs that I do.
Cool. Yeah, I like business for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, the flexibility is great. I always say that you're always on the clock and you're never off the clock. That's not what I meant to say. You're always on and you're always off.
Right.
Right. It's like you always have the flexibility, but you can never truly take a vacation. And that's just kind of the way small business ownership, entrepreneurship is, especially in the early days, because you're usually a pretty essential part of the business. Mm-hmm. So I guess, before we dive into some of the really cool lessons that we've learned together, what would you say has been the hardest part about business ownership? Maybe that you weren't expecting, or maybe you were expecting, but what has been the hardest part of business ownership?
Yeah, it's kind of been, if I had to choose one, it's the uncertainty, especially with this being my first business and being new to what growing a business looks like or feels like. The uncertainty of, if we add this other employee, are we really going to have the work to justify it? Or what is it going to look like in the winter when services slow down? Or is this really going to succeed? Like there's been levels. I call it the all-in moment. And really it's been all-in moments where it's like, oh, we're going to invest in this van and this employee or these employees. And it's like, kind of feels like we're doubling down. We're really committing. And then I've noticed as we continue to go on, it feels like there's every 6 months or so, because we're on a fairly aggressive track to grow the business, there's these all-in moments where it feels like, okay, we're really doing this. We're really pouring in a financial investment in time. Last month was my last month with a part-time job. So now I'm fully into this. These all-in moments just continue to happen with that high level of uncertainty, and you know the reward is going to be delayed, but there's also that nagging part of you that's like, is this really going to pan out the way I think it is?
Right. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, right? Is like the people that are willing to take a risk to build something and hopefully profit from that risk that they take.
Yeah.
Right. But risk, inherent in risk, is always the possibility that things don't work out, which is why a lot of people choose the lane that's going to say, you know, I don't want to take the risk. I just want to have have a more steady paycheck, have a more consistent schedule, you know, fill in the blank.
Totally.
Right. So, like I said earlier, we've learned a lot of lessons together, and I think they've been some pretty impactful lessons. And the first one I want to talk about is training. This has been a huge moment of learning for me, and I'm even taking some of this training ideas, some of the things we've learned about training. I'm taking that and applying it into my other business, Lexar Homes, and how we train project managers and assistant project managers and other staff through the company. And kind of the way I saw it unfold with you is that you personally, Eric, took multiple years to learn this trade. Yes, window washing is a simple thing to do, but there are several challenges and technical things and things that you can do wrong and things that you can do that'll mess people's property up and so on and so forth, right? Like, yes, it's simple. Like, you don't need to go to college for it, but there's still a lot to learn to be able to do it well.
It's also, you're absolutely right. There's the safety element for people's property and protecting that, but it's also, you just have to have a certain level of efficiency
to be
in
profitable.
your process to be profitable.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's easier to go out on your own and make a buck, but if you want to be profitable as a business, you've really got to dial that in, because it's not, like you said earlier, it's not a high ticket service.
So what I saw with you is, again, you kind of developed yourself over the course of multiple years to learn what you've learned now to be, I would say, an expert in the field. Our first hire, we'll call him hire number one, was a little bit of a slow, like, training process.
Yeah, at that point, my process was pretty much follow me around, watch me. I'm going to explain things as they happen, as they come to my mind, as they come up. That was pretty much how I trained, because he was just my helper, basically.
Yeah, and it felt like to really get that person up to quote unquote speed, it was maybe a year of working together, or at least 6 months. I mean, they were still learning well into the first 6 months to a year. Just a lot of time developed, because again, it was totally organic. Just they followed you around and you would teach them lessons as lessons occurred. Mm-hmm. We hired another employee, we'll call them employee two. And we were a little more process driven with that second employee. And it felt like they were trained, I'm going to guess, say, at least in a similar point, whatever we're calling this trained up point. Mm-hmm. What'd you say, 3 months?
Yeah, probably cut that time in half, because I think the piece we could add to that in addition, there was some more system to it. They were still somewhat just working with me a lot directly, but I also allowed that employee to take a little bit more ownership over their work, do some projects on their own, and that kind of forced naturally a bit quicker training as well, because they were going to go and they had to check their own work and guarantee the product for the service.
And at this point, we were getting closer to some standard operating procedures. I don't think we had those dialed or written as clearly as we probably should have, but we were definitely getting to the point where we at least had mental checklists and things. So when we went to employee number 3, it really felt like, and this guy was an exceptionally hard worker just right out of the gate. But I would say he felt like he was to that whatever magical point we're defining that as, maybe a month.
Yeah, a month, that's probably right. Yeah, and just to harp on that point, I mean, I think it's proficiency to the point where somebody doesn't have to be looking over your shoulder the entire time.
Right.
You know how to use all the tools that you have on your belt, and you're working fast enough that we're profitable, that you're considered a profitable employee.
Yeah, and so I think what happened is I think we had hired these 3 people. If I'm recalling the story, and this is how I've kind of built it up in my mind, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember being in a staff meeting. We had these 3 guys, me and you, and we're kind of talking about this because we were going to bring on our 4th employee. And really what we were trying to do is dial in like, hey, what are all the things they really need to know? So we have this point X defined and saying this is what a competent, basically trained employee that's profitable in our business should know. And the reality is that that list is fairly short, maybe 12 or 15 things that you need to know how to do. And once you can get through that list of things, then this person is mostly trained.
Yep.
Now, you're still working on those skill sets. You're still getting better over time. But that fourth employee, who we've since let go just from lack of work and need, which was fine. But he was up and running in what, a week?
Yeah, I mean right. We went way more systematically through that list. I think it was about 12 things, and trained each individually. And then probably within a week he had been through the list, and then within two to 3 weeks he was already at, I mean, a higher level of proficiency than some of those other employees were at in 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months, 1 week. And here's the big idea. If you're a small business owner, you need to define your roles and determine what every person in your organization needs to know to be competent. Once you determine a baseline level of competence, you write that down and figure out how to train it. And then rather letting an employee cycle through the wash being incompetent for months and months and months, just take 1 week out of your schedule and go through the list and train competence right out of the gate. They're going to get 80% of the way trained in a week, and then you're going to knock off the rough edges, and you're going to have so much more productivity and so much more profitability from employees early on.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to us in this window washing, pressure washing profession, because we felt like, hey, we've invested so much time in these employees. What if they leave? It's going to take us another 6 months to train another fill in the blank.
Right.
And I think now a lot of that anxiety is gone, because I think with the processes we have dialed at this point and just knowing the industry so much better, we can train a hard worker to 80 to 90% in a week.
Yeah.
And there's edge cases and complex situations, but that's what managers are for, right? But we can get 90% of the training done in a very short amount of time. And that makes the business feel a lot more stable, because employees don't feel like such a rare commodity. We can bring them in, we can train them, and hopefully they work out for a long time. But if they don't, we can train another one.
Totally. Yep, 100% agree.
So to me, that was a huge lesson. And like I said, in Lexar, I feel like I'm even applying that, because there's definitely a model or thought process in terms of business that kind of says, like, you just need to kind of figure it out. You need to get your feet wet. You need to have experience. You need to kind of learn the hard way. You could go through the school of hard knocks, right? We all kind of know what we're doing around here, right? And yeah, you can learn that way, but it takes so long to get right. And then again, what if you get on a different path than the path that you want that person to be on, right? And so as we're adding project managers and assistant project managers, I'm going through this same process and saying, okay, truly, what does an assistant project manager need to know? How do we expect them to conduct themselves? If we say, if we hire an assistant project manager and after 6 weeks or 6 months, we're frustrated because they're incompetent, did we make a list of what competence is and show them, hey, this is what competence truly is? Yeah. This is what competence means?
And that's a huge temptation, I think, for business owners in the service industry, trades and different things is, I mean, just because a lot of times you have so much proximity to the boss or to the experienced technician, that they're wasting so much of their time babysitting that employee, teaching them things just kind of organically, as opposed to cutting out a little chunk of time to be systematic and really get them up to speed.
Yeah.
It's so much smoother for the employee, and it saves so much time, not just for the employee in their onboarding process, but then also for the sake of the person who has to train them, getting that done, segmenting that out, and finishing it instead of just taking months and months and months to have to split their efficiency too.
100%.
It's huge.
Let's just, for sake of completeness, because we didn't bring the checklist with us, but let's kind of recall some of the things that we go through on a training checklist, because I think that it's kind of broad, right? Yes, so I'm going to say some of them, and then you can fill it in as more of the operator, right?
Sure.
But in window washing, you need to know how to use the sponge and squeegee, right? This is the basic: wipe the window down and squeegee it off. And there is a technique to that, right? So that's usually something you train on day one anyway, because again, you have to do that technique properly. So sponge and squeegee, that would be core essential skill number one. How to place a ladder.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That's huge.
Because you can damage property if you don't place it right, and it's a huge safety concern if you don't place a ladder right. So that's on the list. It could be something as simple as just how to communicate with a customer. You can be frustrated at your employees for not communicating with customers the way you want your brand to be represented, but is it fair to be frustrated with your employees if you never told them how you want them to communicate with customers?
Right.
And again, you're only going to get 80% of the way there. You're not going to be able to teach them every possible interaction they're going to have with a customer, but you're going to teach them, hey, this is basically what we do. This is basically what we say. This is basically how we answer this objection, blah, 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 right? A basic rundown on hard water chemicals and hard water in general. Like, what's our process for getting hard water off? Because again, you can spend a lot of time on hard water, and we have a separate process for that, or a short amount of time. So there's kind of hard water assessment and then restoration, right? And again, don't wait for that to just come up. Let's just go ahead and train people on it, right? I mean, what are some other things? Like, what's on the list?
Yeah, I mean, on the window cleaning side, if we just stuck there, stuff like using the razor blade, how to detail the window. Quality standard is a big one, because window washing is kind of a tricky game of perfect and imperfect, and how much you can detail off the glass and the final deliverable we have for the client. Different types of debris and how they should be removed. We remove stucco a little bit differently than we remove paint. A little differently we remove stickers. I mean, there's little tricks for all the different things that you might come across, particularly in new construction, but you see that a lot on people's homes as well, because it doesn't fully get removed usually from the new construction. So
yeah, so make a list for your employees, make a list for every position in your company, and say, what does a competent person in this role actually have to do to be competent, right? I think that's a huge tip. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, kind of moving on, is efficiency. Now I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to let you tell a story.
Okay.
So early in the business, it was just you and the one other guy, and we were thinking, hey, maybe it would be good. We've got some connections with new construction if we do house cleaning. You're laughing at this story.
Yeah.
So after you build a house, you've got all the construction debris. It's a real mess, and you can come in and clean it. And Lexar, the other company I run, gave you and your partner, your employee, an opportunity to come and do a construction clean on a house. And I want to say it took you guys like...
I almost feel like I remember. It was 2 days. I bet we did about at least 6 hours together the first day. Let's just say 6 and 6. So that's like 24 man hours.
24 man hours to construction clean this house.
Yeah.
And I'm not totally sure what our professional cleaners do it for, but I'm pretty sure it's closer to 6 hours.
That would make sense.
Maybe 4 to 6 hours. And so that's like at least a quarter or less of the total amount of time. That was one guy doing it in less hours. And that's when it kind of occurred to me, this principle of efficiency and how important it is, especially in, and again, I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but in what we would consider maybe these low skill jobs. And by low skill, again, there's obviously lots of skill in construction, cleaning a house or cleaning windows.
Well, they're less technical.
Less technical, but anybody can go and clean windows. You're just, how fast are you going to be?
Right.
And can you clean windows fast enough to make money? Mm-hmm. And can you construction clean a house fast enough to make money? And this is when the thing really hit me, is it's like, okay, this is not a complicated thing to do, but we can't take all day doing it if we expect to make money as a business in this arena, right? And so we got out of the construction clean really fast. I don't think we ever did another construction clean after that.
One and done.
One and done. However, we took that principle and applied it to window cleaning and said, hey, are we really being efficient and cleaning windows fast enough to make money, or could we be faster? Because time is money. We bid for a job, and we're going to make X amount of dollars. If we get that job done in half as much time, we make twice as much money, right? So we started looking at this, and we started measuring this. And this kind of leads to the second story, which is a cool story I want you to tell.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I know what you're talking about. We did an exercise. This was at the point we had, I think we were running 3 employees at the time. I think it was 2. There was 2 guys on this job. And the first thing I did when I came into the project was I counted up all the window panes in the house. And we started by discussing, just as a team, time per window pane. So it's like, okay, if you've been here for an hour, and you've cleaned 20 window panes, we're going to do the math on this and see, if there's 150 panes on this house, how long is it going to take you? So we talked about some of those numbers, and then we decided to transition into a training exercise. And the exercise was essentially like, let's all go to one side of the house, and I want each employee, I had them go through one at a time, I want each employee to guess, based on all the discussion we've had, how long you guys have been here, how long you think, because we were on the interior at that point, now we're on the exterior of the home, so it's a fresh slate. How long do you think it's going to take to clean this side of the house? So we're on the front. And the first guy said something around like 40 minutes, and then 30 minutes. I mean, no joke, these were the guesses. Then we were working for a home builder at the time, and this was their biggest plan. So they were already kind of overwhelmed. They'd been on the inside for, I think, nearly 3 hours. Now we're on the outside. And so they all put in their guesses. I put in my guess. I think I said like 11 minutes or something. And then we all just hustle. I'm like, okay, we're going to work side by side, just moving down the side of the house as fast as we can. We'll come back. We'll double check the quality, but go fast. Push yourself. And I think we did the front side of the house in like 8 minutes.
8 minutes. So we had estimates as high as 40 minutes.
That was their perception.
Perception.
At it.
And here's the thing is we take the time that we give ourselves. We're like gas. We naturally fill the container we're in, right? If we give ourselves a lot of time, we're going to take a lot of time. And the reality is in these service-based businesses, you take a lot of time, you're not making money.
Exactly. And it was fun as we moved around the house, people's guesses got lower and lower and lower. I think we cleaned the next side in like 6 minutes. I mean, I was even shocked. It was stunning to see the difference. I mean, we probably did the exterior of the home then. We totaled it all up. It was probably, I think it was 35 to 40 minutes total compared to what was definitely north of 2 hours on the interior, which was just, I mean, that was a big moment for a lot of those guys in understanding efficiency and hard work. Because that's a big thing too. Like you can teach people the techniques for efficiency, but one of the biggest differences in that too is just their understanding. Like I can set my own pace,
right?
And I can put my headphones in to listen to a podcast and go slow, or I can kind of pick it up. I can hustle,
turn on some Rocky.
Yeah, right.
Eye of the Tiger.
We call it the hustle mentality, and kind of get things done. Because the only difference in a lot of ways, I mean, they didn't gain a ton of technical ability. Well, they gained no technical increase in ability from the inside to the outside of the home, but the synergy that we had, the goal that we had for time and moving through, and then our crew leads have started setting since then goals for different portions of the project to kind of keep people on track.
Right. And so again, put this into your training, right? Put this into your training for your employees. How long do you expect something to take? You know, if you're a video editing company and you hire a new video editor, you know, and you give them a podcast like this one to edit, how long do you expect them to spend on this project? Because if you just go edit this podcast, they're going to take 3, 4, 5 times as long as probably what they need to, because there's not a constraint.
Right.
So the evolution of this in our company then was, okay, we're not going to make people measure per side or even per pane, but we're going to make people measure per dollar spent on the job. So if a job costs $300, we have a rate internally that we want our employees to be earning to be profitable. So they can take that rate, let's say it's $100, and divide it into the amount of dollars for that job. So if it's a $300 job and we need to be profitable at $100 an hour, how many hours do they get?
3.
What if there's 2 people?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half each, right? Because it's per man hour. So if 2 guys show up to a window job, they already know. And what we ended up doing was, right, we made our job summary sheet where we would give the crew lead, whoever's in charge of that job, whether it's 1 guy or 2, but we give them the sheet and they would write down at the beginning of the job, this job is a $300 job. Now, if the billable rate that we're going for is $100, they know they have 3 hours to complete that job to be profitable.
Yep.
And then for accountability, we make them text that job sheet to the owner and the management every single day.
Yeah.
How did that change the culture of the business in your observation?
It changed it dramatically. Not just, it wasn't so much like, we have a great team and their mentality is excellent. I love the people we work with, because it wasn't so much like we're cramming down on them this expectation, but it felt like this massive moment of alignment where they almost realized what we as a business, right? Because this is their livelihood, and everybody on our team wants this business to succeed because they know they're a part of something that's thriving and growing, and it's their livelihood. So they get to see in real time after every single job whether we lost money, whether we broke even, whether we were profitable, by how much. And then that gives us an opportunity as well to build in systems where we can share some of that extra too, because we know the profitability numbers with the employees who are leading the charge in some of the estimating and the fulfillment, getting those jobs done with high efficiency. So it felt like they were running blind before. There was no metric for success or failure. Once there was a metric, it was like night and day, total alignment. Everybody just kind of seemed to be on the same page about what we were doing. And it made it fun in a way too, because they had a goal. Every time they pull up to a job, there's a goal. They're trying to pencil their sheet well, so the business can be profitable.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I saw some good transformation, and it makes it fun to celebrate when you get a really profitable job.
Yeah, and then you measure it by the day. I mean, it was easily the most transformative thing we've done in the business so far, both for business health and just for culture of the teams and hard work and like helping instill some work ethic. You have something to measure whether or not you're working hard and
whether you're going fast enough.
Yeah, estimating
right?
jobs correctly. I mean, there's so much feedback built into that one piece.
And I don't know if we disagree on this or not, because I know there's been conversations about making this form electronic. I'm a little old school maybe, but I like that these are paper forms. We print 100 at a time, we put them in the work van, and they literally have to write on them. And then they have to snap a picture with their phone and send them off. I think at least in the early days, this is important. That's still what they're doing today, right?
Yeah.
But, we could make it electronic. I think there's something really powerful about writing it down.
Writing it down is super powerful. I agree. I think that was the right way to start. If we do go electronic, I just want a little color system. So if you did great, it's green.
Oh.
If you did okay, it's yellow. And if you did poorly, it's red.
We're talking about conditional formatting in Excel. Unfortunately, you have a brother that is kind of an Excel wizard. So we're going to make it happen.
We could. But regardless, yeah, I see the point you're trying to make. Having them actually fill out the sheet. The policy is you fill out the sheet before you go to the next job. Is huge because they're recording the profit or the loss in real time and then sending that feedback. In a lot of cases too, it helps give feedback up the chain because there can either be, you can pencil those sheets poorly also because of lost time cost. There's a section for that. So if you forget a specific tool that you need or a ladder that you need, you got to run back to the shop, or it dramatically decreases the efficiency of the job. They're going to write that in. We can take that back and build systems to prevent that from happening again. Or sometimes it's the case the job is actually bid incorrectly. It was just underestimated the amount of time that it was going to take. And then again, sends feedback up the chain to the right place to whoever's doing the estimating.
Right.
So everybody gets the information they need.
Yeah, it's been a great tool. So maybe the next thing logically to talk about is pricing. And pricing is a really difficult topic for small businesses for a couple of reasons. And I guess I'll touch on some of the ones that I've observed just having consulted hundreds of businesses at this point. Usually solopreneurs, entrepreneurs that are working by themselves, freelancers, or even small companies have a really hard time billing enough because they think, oh, if I'm charging $100 or $200 an hour, that's crazy. The reality is the cost of doing business is a lot higher than you think, especially when you compare it to a 40-hour-a-week job. Because you might say, hey, somebody working 40 hours a week, let's say they're making $80,000 a year. Okay, $80,000 a year is about $40 an hour. Most people would say 80 grand a year is pretty good, 40 bucks an hour. That should be what we're charging. There's some big assumptions built into that though. A, when you have a full-time job, you just go work for 40 hours straight. There's no dead time in there. There's no admin time. There's no travel time. You go to work, you show up, you work for 40 hours, you're done. You get all that. So it's $40 an hour, but it's for 40 hours straight. Also, you've got your employer paying taxes. You've got your employer possibly paying, benefits. Employer potentially paying for time off if you're self-employed. Nobody's, you don't go back to all your clients and ask for PTO, right? So, and in addition to that, the business that's employing you is probably bought your laptop or computer, probably bought your desk, probably buys your tools if you're, in construction or whatever. They have insurance, so you're insured, professional insurance, liability insurance. All these things add up. So that $40 an hour, people will say, okay, I was making 80 grand a year at my old job. That's about 40 bucks an hour. Now I'm going to go do the same thing and I'm going to charge people for it. I should probably charge $40 an hour.
Right.
I mean, you jump in here and help me explain why that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't take into account, like you said, any of the other factors, especially for a business like ours, service-based. There's so many other factors, travel time, the non-billable hours that are required, even just things like maintenance at the shop, maintenance on the vehicles, being able to afford the next vehicle when that one goes down. Insurance has just gone up and up and up year after year, and at the moment it seems astronomical for a business like ours. Anything that involves water is just charged crazy by the insurance companies. So these back-end expenses, and like you said, admin, to be able to facilitate a business that's going to do high volume, really add up. So what the employee makes per hour is not nearly a broad enough picture to capture what you would need to charge just to break even.
Right. And that was a really important thing we did. I would say decently early on, but probably not as soon as we should have done it. Especially as much experience as I have with business, I probably should have helped you calculate this number sooner. But really the idea is like, this is our base wage. This is our taxes. And we basically have a 3-to-1 ratio of billable work to non-billable work. We kind of calculated that over time. You were never going to be more efficient than that. If our guys are billing 3 hours, they're going to be 1 hour of non-billing work, whether it's driving, equipment maintenance, so on and so forth, right? So we've got to take basically 33% of the wage cost and add it on to accommodate that non-billable work.
And even that's running fairly efficiently,
3 to 1.
Say, for a service business.
Sure. So we include a few bucks an hour for depreciation of equipment because equipment does eventually break down and needs to be replaced in that number, as well as labor and industries. I said taxes already, but in a business like ours, labor and industry for pressure washing is about $3.40. So every hour that we're paying them, we're also paying labor and industries $3.40.
Yeah.
Right. So you can see these costs start to stack up. So we know that just to break even, our guys need to be producing at this rate. And that doesn't even include other overhead that's not directly related to the job.
Right.
And that's a really important number. Every business needs to know that number. If you don't know that number, you need to stop, figure it out, get somebody to help you figure it out, because that is absolutely essential when you start doing these metrics and analytics to figure out if you're even making money.
Well, I've often heard it said it's always higher than you think. And that was definitely the case for me. It was a lot higher than I thought. And that's an interesting point on the whole pricing front too, is then bridging that gap between what you've learned and understand as a business owner with what the client knows and perceives.
Right.
And I hear that, obviously you hear that all the time online and from other business owners, that it's like, we're going to go to your house and they know it's only going to take you about an hour, but you're going to charge them $100 to $150. And they look at that and think, you're paying your employee like $100 an hour to, like, you know what I mean?
I don't even make $100 an hour.
Right.
Yeah, but
and no judgment on them. Like, you always have to be respectful, but it's a huge part of the sales process I found now to be able to respectfully and kindly kind of explain to people, like, we're not here to rip anybody off or to price gouge, but the price of doing business is kind of high. And it's not like, certainly me as the owner, as I'm telling you this price, I'm not getting $150 from this. Like, you know, the more you understand that process, or you can explain that process in a respectful way to the clients too, you can really help bridge that gap. And then you're doing a positive service to your entire community, because there's the people out there who are charging way less than they should, and they're either going to run themselves out of business, or they're going to skip on taxes, or they're not insured, and they're doing damage to the industry.
Right.
They're doing damage to the community, or all service businesses, by charging that way. So you can do a little bit of, you can be helpful to the community and other service businesses by being a little bit more educational, bridging the gap with the client and helping them see what it costs to run a business and how much it costs to get laborers out there, because it truly is expensive.
And I think that kind of leads me into my next kind of thought or comment or learning as we've worked in this business. Whenever you're doing a service-based business, and again, I got to come up with a better way to say it, because I keep feeling like it's derogatory to say it's low skill. What did you say earlier? Because we don't want to say
it's non-technical.
It's non-technical.
Like, there's technical
right?
trades and there's non-technical trades. It's a non-technical
Yeah, so it's
skill.
not like an electrician, right, where you need to become a journeyman and get this special training and whatever. Like, the reality is, and this happens, people go buy a squeegee and a sponge, a bucket, some Dawn soap, and they're a window washer. Now, that's not going to be the quality that we provide, but the bigger thing is it's not going to be the professionalism. And I think a lot of what we sell is the professionalism, because if you're just a kid or a young adult that's got, the minimum tools, they don't have a fancy water-fed pole or a buffer tank or any of the things that we have that really makes our service elevated, right? But if you're just kind of going out with the bare minimum, you might be able to get away with $40 an hour, because again, you probably don't have insurance, you probably aren't paying taxes or not labor in industry, like. It's very lean. So how can you compete with that? How can Pure View Exterior Cleaning compete with the kid? And I think the reality is we can't, unless the customer values professionalism.
Absolutely.
Because if you're just looking for the bottom dollar, there's always somebody that can do it cheaper. But are they professional? Do they answer the phone when you call? Are they available? Are they insured if they break something at your house? Are they insured if they get hurt on your house, at your house?
One, I won't be the last to say there's a strong correlation, it seems, between people who don't have insurance and people who don't know what they're doing as far as property protection goes. It's kind of the worst combo. There's just a general lack of care and respect for the things that can go wrong in a business like this. Because, it is high liability. Window cleaning, not so much, but soft washing and pressure washing especially can be high liability services, and you really have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, we want to attract the kind of customers that again want to pay for a professional service, and if we just can't service the kind of people, and it's kind of like hiring somebody, and not there's professional handyman services, but there's also kind of hiring the guy that kind of does some work on the side, on the weekends, and to come fix your house. And that's definitely an option. But then there's the hiring the contractor, that has the tools, has the equipment, comes in, gets the job done quickly, gets it done right, and they're gone, right? It's just two different things. I've another service industry that's similar, right, would maybe be like lawn care.
Definitely.
Right? Non-technical. I was going to say low skill again. Not low skill, non-technical.
Yeah.
Because again, all these non-technical jobs, they still are skill-based, especially if you do them at a profitable rate.
Right. You can have a high variance in skill, speed, efficiency, all the things we talked about.
Yeah. So non-technical. So lawn care, again, you're going to be any job you're competing with teenagers at. Like how do any of the professional lawn service businesses make money when you got teenagers going around mowing lawns? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, you know what? Some people just want it done professionally and they want it done right. Mm-hmm. They want it done every Tuesday at 10. They want you gone in an hour, and they want everything cleaned up properly. And if they hit a sprinkler, they want it fixed that same day, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
and that's what you get. You're going to pay 3 or 4 times as much with one of these smaller or with one of these professional lawn care businesses, but you're going to get a level of professionalism that's just completely unmatched compared to having, your neighbor kid do it.
Totally. Professionalism, peace of mind. That's huge.
And so, I think, even in your business, there's a little bit of that transition because you started as that kind of solo operator. And then we moved into kind of being the professional business. And so again, that changes the pricing a little bit. That changes the costs and how we do business and the whole nine. But I think professionalism in these, non-technical service businesses is huge.
Absolutely.
So what else? What else have you learned in the last couple of years that you think we can share with the audience and just pass on?
I think another one of the really big things that we've learned mostly through unfortunate incidents is the importance of having systems around documentation when something does go wrong. I won't get into super specifics with the stories, but we've had at least 2 more major incidents where, so let me back up and say, little things go wrong on the job all the time. And it's important to have policies that say, if there's something that isn't going right, we're going to loop that client in right away. If it's something like, let's say we're walking around and we accidentally kick a sprinkler and break it or whatever, little accidents, they happen. I wouldn't say all the time, I guess, but they happen. And we loop the client in and we make that known, we make it right, whether it's through replacing the thing or financially or whatever it may be. There's been a couple instances where something bigger will happen. And in both of these instances, it was actually us being accused of something that pending our investigation or through our investigation, we realized wasn't even our fault. But it was something that it's the kind of situation where you get the call from the client and they say, hey, this is what's going on our property. X, Y, and Z happened. And we're caught in a hard position because we didn't have the proper documentation processes at the time to document kind of before pictures, after pictures, the different elements of our work to protect ourselves, or proper documentation during the investigation portion of the incident. So we go and we review it. We look at what they're talking about and their concerns. And then, just having a thorough investigation and documentation there. So that's something in these types of service businesses, and I'm sure other businesses as well, that getting proper documentation when there's an incident or when you're doing an investigation and really not cutting corners on that can be super helpful. And then never assume, maybe this is more specific to the window cleaners and pressure washers out there, never assume that what you're seeing, you can look at it and say, I know that wasn't me. I know we didn't do that to the glass or to the concrete or to the siding. But whether the client has goodwill or malicious intent, they may not see that the same way you do. There may be some confusion and they might come back and accuse you of something that wasn't your fault. So proper documentation around that is absolutely key.
Yeah, we've had some pretty crazy situations for sure. Just people, sometimes you clean a dirty window and it exposes damage that then they accuse you of doing. Right.
Totally.
And because we know our tools and how they work, we can, in some cases, have known, there's no way based on the tools we use that we could have caused that damage. You've just never noticed that damage because hard water or dirty window or whatever. But even going back to the sprinkler example, sprinklers on the side of the house, if the window washer is going around and they see a broken sprinkler, they might just want to snap a picture of it to say, hey, this was already broken when I got here, because if the homeowner comes outside the next day and sees the sprinkler's broken, their first thought is going to be, oh, that window washer broke it.
Totally.
People are looking for somebody to blame.
Well, it's so important that you bring that stuff up on the job site in the moment, or you text the client before you leave, because it just creates so much friction and so much potential for a conflict if the client's the one bringing it up to you the next day, a few days later, or a week later, whatever it is, and then you're so far removed from that moment. and it just looks bad.
Yeah.
That's where I've had huge empathy in the situations we've been in, is if our documentation process wasn't quite there yet, it's a bad look. I can empathize with how the client's feeling,
Right.
Toward us in that situation. But since then, we've tightened up our documentation a lot.
Yeah. So lots of stuff to do in these small businesses. Again, I'm kind of jumping into ownership, not in a full-time role by any sense of the word. I'm going to be helping out a lot more. You and Dad are going to kind of be running the business, doing the sales. But this is the kind of work I love. I've been loving kind of consulting and helping you. And I just want to throw it out there that if other people are looking for this sort of help, whether it's profit analysis, forms, just business consulting, pricing, market models, any of that stuff, that's what I want to do. It's this sort of thing, working with small business owners. How much have we really worked together in the last couple of years? It's
a ton. Yeah, we would not be where we are today.
Well, I was going to say a couple hours a month. It's not like we're working together every single day.
We're not going to the same office, but I guess that we've put in the hours to consult, a couple hours a month, sure. But I mean, the impact has been huge.
Yeah, and I'd love to do this with more businesses, and like I said, more types of businesses, because we're kind of learning together. But I do feel like I've learned a lot with this business, with Lexar, and some of the other businesses I've run and successfully sold, and some of these principles are starting to echo consistently over and over and over again, because business is business, right? And every industry has its own quirks and challenges, but at the end of the day, business is business, and every business makes money basically the same way, right? You got to sell something for more than what it costs to produce it, whether it's a service or a good. And so it's a lot of fun. It's been really fun doing this with you, and I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. We'll definitely have to do it again in maybe another year, give an update, and share some more lessons.
Absolutely. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for checking out this podcast. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content, please like, comment, subscribe. As you've heard from everybody on the internet, it really helps us out as content creators. We do have a live event coming up January 29th. I'd love for you to check it out. It's going to be in Kennewick, Washington at the HBA office, 2:30 to 3:30, January 29th, and it's going to be about small business finance. This is not theoretical, it's practical. You're going to walk away with great tips and understanding of what you should be looking at as a small business owner regarding your finances, because I can tell you the majority of small business owners I work with are looking at the complete wrong things when it comes to small business finance. I'd love to see you there.